Hello again, and welcome to DevSecTalks. I'm your host, Ashley Ward, and today I'll be sitting down with Michael, who's a senior security engineer at Personio. Personio focuses on making life easier for HR professionals, supporting their businesses' unique requirements whilst operating across Europe in a highly complex and regulated market. In today's episode, Michael will discuss the security processes needed to manage a ton of personal data at once, as well as the challenges of onboarding new team members within a rapidly growing organization. Let's get started. First things first, tell me a little bit about Personio, please.
So Personio is an all-in-one software for HR management for small and medium-sized companies. So we are managing the whole life cycle of employees, from recruiting to onboarding, everything around time management, absence management, performance management, payroll. This is part of our business.
Wow, so you've kind of picked the most sensitive data you could and decided you're going to operate that. How does that run? Is that a SaaS service?
Yes, SaaS service. Everything is managed through a browser interface. We have also a mobile app for mobile access. This is sensitive software. Everyone knows about this. We have to keep it secure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I know that there's a new integrations marketplace, and I really want to dive into that. But just before we do, I think it's important to also talk about the scale that you're operating in. So I know the answer to this already. That's always the best question. But give us an idea of where you operate. What's the area that you're operating in?
Yeah, so of course we're aiming for small and medium-sized companies throughout Europe. So currently we are around 3,500 customers, managing a lot of employees of these companies. So every company in Europe with 10 to 2,000 employees could be a customer for us.
Wow, and that's across Europe. So we've set the scene quite nicely there. I think we've got this exciting organization that's growing rapidly, that's dealing with very sensitive information across some of the most regulated countries in the world as well. And here you are with integrations. Tell me what these integrations are. What is it, first of all, this new marketplace?
We're aiming to be the source of truth for all data related to employees in a company. And that also opens possibilities for partners to integrate. So for instance, to have external payroll companies provided with this data, like the data integration we done in Germany for payroll, and for other as well, so for external performance management or for notifications in Slack or Teams. So something like that, having the possibility for employees to make their life easier, for instance, to have the absence or a holiday booked in the software and approved through a chat, for instance.
I'd imagine a lot of organizations who might have traditional HR or traditionally sensitive information would be very worried about exposing that to be consumed through APIs. So, I mean, how do you go about building that secure API? How do you secure this? Give us a taste of how that happens.
Yeah, of course, everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. So this is also requirements that being given by the general data protection regulations. So we are bound to regulations, and we also ensure that that's done correctly. And we are, of course, audited to that we do it correctly. And we have a strict rule-based access control implemented in our software that enables the customer to decide what kind of information to expose through the API. So the customer is in control over time, being able to restrict the access to the information of the employees.
And I can fully understand that anybody joining Personio would go, oh, this is obviously sensitive data, and would need to have that security mindset. But even so, you still need to keep up and ensure that it's embedded in that software development lifecycle. How do you go about doing that? How do you make sure that security is there and forefront in people's minds?
Throughout our development lifecycle, we have defined couple of processes that helps us to ensure that security is always part on the checklist for every new feature. We have an internal request for comment process, RFC process that helps us along with that. And the security team is involved in reviews. We have multiple eyes on every part of the software that goes to production. So there's a strict process around this that helps us to ensure it. And of course, we also auditing our cloud resources as a SaaS software company. We're using, of course, cloud resources that they have to be configured securely. And we keep in track on monitoring the compliance of every commit, of every resource that is created in our environment.
So aside from reviewing RFCs or reviewing commits, is there anything else, even if somebody was wanting to get started with this, is there anything else that you do from that shift left point of view?
The first step when you do something, but of course it's all about the mindset that also has to be there. And training helps a bit, but everyone knows in the company that this is quite crucial. If we do something wrong, then it might hurt the business and also everyone else.
What do you think then is the next evolution then of how we go about doing some of this? And I'm catching you off guard with this because I'm looking at it now. I see that we're opening things up. We've got a security mindset. Everyone shouts about shift left. Is there some sort of new technology? And I'm not talking about tools, but what do you think is the next thing that's going to hit the security world? What do we need to adapt to, or what do you think is coming?
Yeah, I think that the current way of doing cloud native, so having microservices in a cloud environment enables us from the security point of view to have more control, to have more fine granular control about what a microservice can do and should be able to do, what should it be able to communicate with, how runtime behavior looks like. So something like that. There are a lot of tools available that help creating these policies, but they have to be created by both the developers and the security team and the infrastructure team in a joint collaboration effort to define what's the intended purpose of this service and how it can be protected.
That's really good to hear. I really enjoy speaking to someone who knows their security and who also just says, yes, we can do more with microservices and we can do things in a better way. Now, the next thing to talk about is more slightly on the culture side. I came from an operations background, and I used to hate when people said DevSecOps. I felt that operations and development, that security was part of that anyway, so why have to call it out? I've changed my mind slightly. I can see why we want to emphasize that security is a first-class citizen in this. What are your thoughts on the whole DevSecOps piece?
Yeah, I'm with you. So, of course, it has to be in everyone's mindset. And also, of course, developers have to know how to operate their services and also how the security is defined in the services. So this is, it plays together. So having a term for that is nice, but of course, it should be part of every feature development.
how does an organization, perhaps who makes, we make light bulbs. My Ashley Ward company makes light bulbs, and for some reason, I've decided to make smart light bulbs. I now need to start opening up my data center for people connecting in. How do I start, or how do I embed that culture of security first?
Yeah, of course, getting the right people that know about this, that is the first thing. And think about what's the data that has to be protected for a certain purpose, and having strict risk management done, so to define the risk factor of all the possible access that can happen to malicious parties, and trying to reduce the attack vector by defining the right controls to do this. So this is a part of a process. Most is about knowledge about the possible vulnerabilities that can happen when you create software, and using third-party components when embedding them into your software. Being educated about this is the most crucial thing.
Someone was telling me that they think that the next expansion would be to bring more areas of the organization into the DevSecOps umbrella, but actually doing things like having legal involved earlier on in the process for things like license requirements. Is that something you're seeing? I think Germany's always been the ones who tested the open source licensing in court, but is that something you see evolving, more of the organization coming in?
Yeah, of course, it's also one of our concerns too. We are using a lot of third-party software. Of course, these days you cannot build software fast without open source software. And of course, we have to keep track of what we're using. Can we use it legally? So having a look at the licenses. And we have also, of course, the legal department involved in any decisions of using new tools in our system. So this is a part of the process that the whole organization has to take care of, being involved everywhere. So the security team is part of it, but the whole organization has to know about this. Every employee in a company, customer support also has to know about security these days. Phishing attempts or scamming attempts might happen. There are lots of possibilities for an attacker to harm an organization.
That leads on to another point then. So do you have, when you're looking at new features or new things coming in, I know that you're a very, very fast moving organization. So it might not be relevant. You might say, Ashley, this is just how we operate. But it can sometimes be difficult to embed security in each of the different product areas and each of the different areas that, to scale security. It's just very, very difficult. How do you approach that?
Yeah, as I told, we are using our RFC process. If we are deciding on a technical solution, that we have a mandatory review on the security implications of a new feature. So having us involved, and everyone can be involved, to have a look at the specific requirements that keep our customer data safe. So I think that's part of the mindset that we try to foster in development and throughout the product teams.
What's your favorite integration that you've seen, or you've seen people doing?
Of course, for us, it's the onboarding to our IT system. So everyone needs an account at different other systems when joining a company, and having the Personio system as the source of truth enables us to federate this information to other systems by, for instance, feeding that to a single sign-on system. So by defining the right role in the HR software, you already have the right role assigned in external system by a single sign-on. That's a great thing. And of course, you cannot forget about removing an account from the system if the employee leaves the company. that will happen automatically by this integration. So you can remove the lever from all the systems automatically. And that's, of course, a nice security feature.
Thank you to Michael for taking the time to break things down for us here. And thank you for tuning in to today's episode of DevSecTalks. Visit the link in the description below for more details on this series. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on channel notifications. You'll be the first to know about new episodes of our DevSecTalks series. Interested in being involved with DevSecTalks? Have any recommendations for future topics? Be sure to let us know in the comments section below. I'll see you next time.